Well, so in the past, I've made videos about learning for sustainability. Obviously, the sort of climate change-esque infiltration coming into Scottish schools. There's also global citizenship education, and quite often you will find, as I've showcased before on Twitter, that a lot of these organisations who are allegedly independent of government, they all seem to have a sort of foothold in Scottish academia. A classic example of that is WASDEC, which you can see on the screen here. So I'm just going to briefly go through their website, just ever so slightly. I'm not going to, rehash old ground just for the sake of it, but for anybody that's not seen any videos that I've made on these individuals before, you'll get a bit of a semblance of understanding as to who we're dealing with here. Now, WASDEC, as we'll come to the who are we? Let's go to their organisation, for example. Let's get a little bit of insight as to who's peddling the nonsense that's becoming more and more and more apparent in Scottish academia. We are one of the 5 development education centres who work closely together to ensure all educators, educator being a teacher, across Scotland have access to high quality professional learning opportunities and innovative learning and teaching practices. Right? And they've got Aberdeen for a fairer world. They've got the One World Centre. They've got Highland One World. They've got ScotDeck, and then they've got WASDeck. ScotDeck seems to be, well, it was for the time the most prolific with some of the things that they pump out. But as you can see here, and there's their Twitter there, WASDeck. I might even have a wee look at that before they ban me. So look, you've got the global goals, sustainable developments, of course. Then you've got global citizenship. But let's see how they define global citizenship in just a second, because that's kind of the focus of this video. But they say here that the DECs are all members of the International Development Education Association of Scotland, which, as I've covered this website before in detail, a network of organisations and individuals committed to promoting education for global citizenship across Scotland, with the majority of the work that they do being project funded. Over the years, their work has been supported by a range of donors, including the UK Department for International Development, Oxfam, and the Scottish Government. Of course, yeah, of course, SNP. There's their annual reports, yada yada. Just to show you where this is their main website here. I haven't been on it for some time, but um, let's just see if they've really changed anything since I was last here. The Network for Champion Global Citizenship Education in Scotland. Yeah. So let's see how they define global citizenship. What does it mean? What does global citizenship mean? Well, global citizenship is a way of living that recognises our world as an increasingly complex web of connections and interdependencies, with global citizenship nurturing personal respect and respect for others wherever they live, encouraging individuals to think deeply and critically about what is equitable and just, yeah, and what will minimise harm to our planet. Exploring global citizenship themes helps learners grow more confident in standing up for their beliefs, aka propagandising our youth, which you'll see yourself in just a moment. They also go on to say down here that their members approach global citizenship education through a critical lens, right? Informed by decolonial theory. Oh, yeah. And then if we come back to their actual the website in question, WASDeck, which is one of their little proxies, right? They say here that global citizenship, conflict, climate breakdown, systemic racism, increasing inequality. If we are to respond to the urgent issues we face today, we need to transform the system. We need to transform the system which perpetuate harm and injustice, with global citizenship education empowering learners to understand these systems and to act for a peaceful, just, and of course, sustainable future based on human rights, anti-racism, which is critical race theory, and global solidarity. Right? So you're starting to notice a little pattern here as to the sort of shit that they're promoting, right? Just have a wee look see at their Twitter, because I haven't been on this in a long time in truth. See if there's anything worth discussing. Um, Global storylines. Well, funny they mention that because that's what I'm coming on to in just a second. But exploring complex global issues through drama while connecting explicitly with the United Nations global goals. Always ties in. But it's politicisation and it's propagandisation of our children, fundamentally. So, that leads me to the video in question. Now, let me just say something quickly here. I said when I was covering this briefly that it was politicisation and propagandisation. Just it says it encourages individuals to think deeply and critically about what is equitable and just and what will minimise harm to our planet. Exploring global citizenship themes helps learners grow more confident in standing up for their beliefs. It's like, so they're promoting politics to children, and the point in case is the fact that they start off their video.
Got the power. Who's got the power? People got the power. People got the power.
Children protesting climate change, demanding action. Yeah. Okay.
My name's Anne Hutchison. I teach primary 6, 7 in Carmel Primary School in the city of Glasgow. First of all, I would say that global storyline is the best way to teach. I would say that first because it is not you leading the learning, you are co-creators with the children. And that is my first thing that I adored. But what you're really doing with global storyline is you have a story that you are following that is built up of episodes, and the one that I did recently had 6 episodes, and they are looking at global issues. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we can be very guilty of thinking children can't deal with global issues, or we better dumb that down for children because they can't handle it. Mm-hmm. And I would say,
is that right? Okay. And what does she mean by global issues before I really go any further with this wet wipe of a woman? Well, as I've already reiterated, global issues such as climate breakdown, systemic racism, increasing inequality, conflict, and the solutions that will then be provided on the back of that, the suggestions would come to the tune of, a sustainable future based on human rights, anti-racism and global solidarity. That's the first thing. Also, albeit she didn't make reference to it per se there, but there's always this constant undertone of an emphasis on children's rights. It's the metaphorical smoke being blown up their arse, as I've made reference to before, where they try to empower children, and the term empowerment in and of itself is a red herring because they're politicizing children, and then they justify it by saying, oh, well, we've always assumed that children shouldn't know about X, Y, and Z, when, they quite clearly are capable of comprehending it. Now it's politicization. All of these global issues that they speak about for the most part, all completely manufactured to some degree. And even if you want to make the case that they're not manufactured in any capacity, they're still taking advantage of the so-called issues that are out there. Climate change being a classic example. Did you know that one way to stop climate breakdown is to implement a sustainable, equitable future based on a well-being economy? Oh, imagine my fucking shock. How convenient. How convenient. That'll stop the ice caps melting, just implement socialism. Huh. Wow. Anyway, it's just this constant, the way, and then it ties into the United Nations Children's Rights Charter, as I've said so many times, to the point where I'm sick saying it. One of their rights is that they have a right to be listened to and taken seriously. Another right says that they have a right to be brought up in a sort of, I can't remember the wording, I'd have to relook, but like a clean environment, which is that's a red herring in and of itself, because then that's the excuse to start teaching them about climate change, non-existent man-made climate change with the very convenient solutions that are off the back of it. Oh, it's just odious.
And I think sometimes we can be very guilty of thinking children can't deal with global issues, or
shouldn't have to. And the fact there's like helplines and stuff for climate anxiety that you people have created. You don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about.
oh, we better dumb that down for children because they can't handle it. And I would say there's nothing further from the truth, because
Nothing further from the truth. See, I mean, she even makes no sense here. I will stop pausing it, but she starts off and saying, "Oh, we're guilty of thinking that children can't handle things, so we dumb it down for them." That couldn't be any further from the truth. That's why we've created global storylines, where we've put it into a booklet format, in story format for them. You know, quite clearly, it was a bit too difficult for them to comprehend prior to that. You know.
children can handle much more than you think, and they should
Had to put it into book format.
be, because they're going to be the global citizens of the world, the future. That's who they are, much more than you think, and they should be, because they're going to be the global citizens of the world, the future. That's who they are. So in the global storyline, they create a community, so they all have a character, and I loved that, and I became a character as well, so the children own it. And that is very important, because then they immediately have ownership, and if something's going to happen to the community that they are part of, they are going to care. So if, for example, you said, I want to teach the children about divestment, which was one of the big issues.
Why?
In it. Now, most teachers would say, oh, well, I'm not going to be teaching that. That sounds very complicated.
And not relevant to a child.
But through the global storyline approach, it became much more manageable to the children and meaningful, because their bank was found to be investing in fossil fuels. And so they wanted to encourage them to divest.
Oh, you see that? Fossil fuels are bad. Climate change education has taught the children that it's bad, but in order for them to be able to comprehend it in a sort of consumable manner, let's put it into story format so we can then get the kids to understand that the bank in their local area is funding the problem. Then we'll get them to go out with their placards and protest and demand action. This is all about convincing children to get on board with the narratives that are being presented here. This is the most insufferable, odious, sinister, malevolent nonsense that you will ever see. Really, and not just this, all of the things they are doing to our youth. It is the most disgusting shit to consume. But it has to be done, because these people are getting away with this.
And it ended up being the best episode, because I had to come in character from the bank as the bank rep, and the children had all called a meeting community because they had found out that the bank had invested in fossil fuels.
Obviously fossil fuels are very bad, because that's what they've been taught, yeah?
And the community were outraged, and the actual bank manager decided that they were going to give up their job in the bank because of it. And then one of the boys stood up in the middle of the meeting and went, I'm taking all my money out, Greenwell Bank. No way am I investing any more money, which was just fantastic.
Brilliant.
And then we come out of the story, and the children then learn about divestment, which is fabulous, because you're doing the hard learning and then taking them out of the story. And when you then are asking them to look at little videos of like natural disasters or fossil fuels, it's much easier for them to digest. And the children will say that it's not
Indoctrination. That's what you're doing. I mean, this is mad. They just put some dopey music in the background and they justify indoctrinating your children. That's what's happening here. This is indoctrination.
and fabulous. It's a great way to teach. And the other thing that is really great at the global storyline is each episode ends on a kind of cliffhanger, and you get those gold dust moments in teaching, because you're stopping at the end of an episode and going, you need to wait till tomorrow. And when you have a class of children nearly going to high school going, oh, please tell us, please tell us, please tell us, there is nothing more amazing than that as a teacher, because those are the moments you dream of when you train, that the children are so engaged and they are desperate for the next episode. And that's what happens with our global storyline. It's just fabulous. Made me rethink how I teach, because I mean, I've taught for 25 years now, and I think I had come away from how I taught at the beginning of my career, which was trying to involve the children in a lot of leading of the learning, and then things come in and certain targets you have to meet, and that kind of went. But doing the professional learning made me rethink that, doing all the reading and thinking especially about Freire, I think that's how you say it, problem posing education, I think is so important. And something I was reading about the other day to do with like critical global citizenship education is that children need to be aware that there is epistemic uncertainty in the world, and we need to make it clear to children that is okay, because I think too often in education we think there's answers to things and you will be given answers. But within global citizen education, you're not going to have answers, and they need to be able to sit with that. And one thing that I've spoken about before, a lot of the ideas need to be given time to breathe. And
critical global citizenship education. Our stories provide accessible ways to explore complex issues of global interdependence. Each story connects explicitly with the Sustainable Development Goals and human rights. Using educational drama techniques, learners become characters in the story. Through this, they become motivated to understand the root causes of the issue. This, in and of itself, is the issue, though, because half of these problems, as I said earlier on, half, if not all of these problems, are manufactured to some degree. So they will present an issue, whether it's created, manufactured, or otherwise, but then they have the convenient solutions. There's no critical thought involved at all. There is one-sided arguments, climate change being the most obvious one I go to, because it's the most prolific, but they blame fossil fuels, they say it's CO2, then they say that there's only one solution, but you never hear the other side of the argument, nor do the children. So it's so clear-cut. And building solidarity with those affected in the real world. Each story ends on a note of hope, though not one of unrealistic optimism, and offers opportunities for learners to take real actions on the issues they have explored so closely. What learners have to say? And here, from acting to action, transformative learning for sustainability through global storylines. Oh, wow. Chapter 12, what the fuck? Anyway, let's see.
Audio Jungle. Who's got the power? Who's got the power? People got the power. People got the power. Audio Jungle.
Express yourself in like ways that you wouldn't normally be able to. So like you could make like Greenville a community where you could express yourself in a net zero environment.
I liked how we also got
Net zero environment.
to like research about like disasters and stuff about like that.
We would talk about it like outside and stuff, and people would actually play Greenville outside.
Like didn't really like acting, but then when I got into it I started to like it. Sometimes I got so excited I wish the episode were actually on TV so I could watch it for myself.
It inspires you to like make a change, so like you could save, like not save the world, but like be a part of making it better.
So I get to play with my pals that's still in class, and it is very fun because you were learning, but you were also having fun. So it is like really good because you don't really get that.
Definitely recommend this to other people, because like I said before, it helps me.
It's fun for all of us and the teachers and the people, and see everybody.
I can't, man. It's just angering me. It really is, because at the end of the day, these children are just pawns. It's disgusting. What's happening here? Oh, let me see this. I might have to make a separate video on this because I haven't read through this. But my point to all of this is just This here. This is what this is. And this is Scottish Government endorsed. This is Learning for Sustainability. This is Global Citizenship Education. This is United Nations Children's Rights Charter bullshit. This is what are they called? UNESCO. This is just propagandization, politicization of our youth. And it could not be any more clear. Peace.